Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Very good. Good to be here.
Glad to have you. We're going to let more folks trickle in here.
Hi, Kazim.
Yes, ma'am.
Somebody mentioned that they had an app that facilitated answering those required questions in the morning, the interview questions you need to ask of parents. Like in Massachusetts, every time a child's dropped off, you have to ask if the child's had a fever, if they have any symptoms, and the parents need to fill it out and then submit it. Somebody said that there's an app that facilitates that kind of questionnaire.
I remember the conversation you're referring to, but I don't remember the name of the app. If any of our attendees, Danya's saying we use an app called Pick My Kid. Pick is P-I-K, Pick My Kid.
That is correct, Kasim.
Awesome.
They're developing basically a set of questions that the parents will fill out when the parents drive in.
Yeah.
So it's online. So that's what we are using.
Okay. Is it customizable by state?
That I do not know. I mean, I can give you the contact information about the company and see if they can. I'm not sure if they're nationwide or statewide. I'm not quite sure, but I can let you know in case if you're interested.
Hi, and this is Danya here. They are customizable. They're coming up with a template of about 10 questions, and you'll be able to choose from those 10 questions, and you can also add your own. Right now, I think they're in a few states. I'm not sure which states they are, but I know they are trying to grow. They also provide a really good way, we use them for carpool, and this is just another feature that they're adding to help facilitate the carpool process. But they're a really great company, very responsive, and make things very easy.
Wow. Okay, that's great news. Thank you.
And that's the Pick My Kid app?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think for a school our size, we have about 200 kids. I think we paid about $2,000 for the year. So that's about how much the app costs.
Are there any others that anyone is aware of?
Any other check-in apps that anybody uses? If you have any check-in apps, do us a favor and drop them into the chat. And honestly, any apps that you're using, any software that schools should check out, let's drop them into the chat and we can.
Is anyone using Brightwheel? Do they have a health screening app? Is anyone using Brightwheel?
Heidi's saying you can create something on Google Forms.
Heard about Brightwheels. I know some schools locally are using it, but we haven't really looked into it.
Yeah, I've got it pulled up here. It doesn't look like they have check-in, but that's worth looking at too. I'm gonna, if y'all don't mind, just share something real quick. We did a quite a bit of research on the supplies that everybody's interested in purchasing. We reached out to all of the companies that we found had stock and inventory, and then asked them if they offer bulk buying options. So the Mr. Cart is the first example, and they offer this product and have told us that they offer 30% off, a 30% off discount for schools and churches, and there's no minimum required. So we can actually, anybody who wants to order that can order it. The wand, the UVC wand, will give us 20% off if we buy 100 wands. Which is actually, I think, a really fair deal. The issue I see is how we'll figure out how to do fulfillment, because they all get shipped to one place. So if there were a volunteer that wanted to sort of play that game, accepting the ones and then shipping them off to people and charging them whatever the individual shipping would be, then I think this could be viable. And we've got a few here. So what I'm going to do is just share this sheet, and then I'll create another tab for a sign-up list. And if you're interested in any one of these, just put your name on the sign-up list, and we'll see how how much interest there is and whether or not it's worth pursuing.
Quick question, Kasim. This is Emily. Hi. If people like me who are stressed out about back order situations have already gone and placed orders, if we notify the company, would the discount still apply? Could we include that as part of your order, or because I've already done some of this ordering?
That's a good question. I would imagine they'd probably push back on that a little bit as something of a bait and switch on our end. You know, if I said, hey, I have all these schools I can bring you, will you give it as a price break? And then I come back and say, oh, by the way, some of those schools have already placed retail orders. Please refund them.
But what I would do is say the only reason I did was because you brought me to them.
Sure. Well, I think what you might, if we just treated them as two independent transactions. So if you happen to cancel your transaction and then if you were bundled with us, it's not as though they're going to see your name on the list.
Yeah, I was just concerned about the back order situation, but you said everybody here has things in stock and ready to go?
So they say, yes, ma'am. It wouldn't be the first time that companies have accepted orders they can't fulfill because they don't want to lose the business.
Right.
That's the other thing that I want to make just painfully clear and apparent is we have no relationship with these folks at all outside of cold emails. We're not affiliates in any way. And I also don't know that I want to take on the responsibility of hurting the cats. So I would need someone to champion this. We've gotten it this far, so to speak. So it occurs to me that it's probably best handled by, if there's an association head or somebody that kind of has a hub to the spokes. I think that person could really take this and run with it. And there is a pretty substantial cost savings here. You know, the LED air purifier, it's $580 retail if we purchase 5 units, and they'll give us greater discounts if we have more people that opt in. So I'm going to share the sheet to the town hall page once we're ready for it. And then the second tab of the sheet, does everybody know how tabs work on Google Sheets? I'll just share real quick. So you'll see the products on tab 1, and in the bottom left-hand corner here is the products tab. And then if you toggle over to sign up list, I'm going to have the names of the products. So it'll be, you know, product 1, product 2, product 3, and then just add your name and email right underneath the products. And that will let us know who's interested in what. And if there's anybody who is willing to be the poor soul that has to manage this, please reach out to me. I'll drop my email in the chat. And with no further ado, I'm so excited to introduce our next speakers. Everybody knows Donna DeHoostelaar. She's done so much for our community. And she has brought her brilliant husband, Michael DeHoostelaar. Donna and Michael, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
And Michael has already done a really in-depth financial analysis for, I think, 6 schools, he said. And so what he's going to do is he's going to take the learning lessons from that exercise, share it with us, and then they'll also open up the floor for some questions. So I'm going to be quiet and turn it over to Donna and Michael.
So I can get this computer to work. I am, as the 6 schools that I work with know, I'm certainly no Zoom expert, but I will do my best to do that. This morning, we're going to talk about the number side of dealing with this pandemic and what some of the issues might be. I'm going to try and limit my comments to less than 20 minutes so that we have a lot of time for questions and answers. Donna's sitting next to me because a lot of the stuff that I shared with people and a lot of the research that was done prior to this meeting was done by her, and I really would prefer that she would address some of those issues. So later in my presentation, I'll defer to her. The first question is, are you the numbers person of your business? Do you take responsibility for the finances and for the profit and loss statements and for the budgeting of your business? And if you don't, who is responsible for that? Are you able to read a profit and loss statement? Do you have a financial forecast? I've discovered that I've been doing what industry most business put numbers in finance. Last to do, they have everything out that they don't do it. They push
Michael,
so
you're breaking up pretty badly. I think is everybody else having a tough time hearing him?
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's going to be a problem because we've got everything turned off except this computer, and it keeps flashing.
That's
Your
okay.
internet is unstable, and we've had Cox out here, so I apologize. So just raise your hand, and we'll talk again.
Okay, well, and let's do this too, if you don't mind. Will y'all turn off your cameras because that will decrease the amount of information you're trying to push through that pipe. Or just Donna and Michael. Nobody else needs to do that. But Donna and Michael, if you can turn off your camera.
Yeah. Maybe.
No problem. There's a little icon in the
Yeah,
bottom.
no, I got it.
Awesome.
It's fine. There you
Sorry to interrupt. Take it away. Forgive me.
go.
Well,
But can you still see though, if we turn off our camera, you can still see our screen, yes?
Yeah, we sure can.
Perfect. Okay, go.
so much of the presentation is self-explanatory. I'm not going to read off of it, but it's really, if you don't hear me, I think you'll still get the gist of it by looking at the screen. It's important for each of the schools to have a profit and loss statement. It's important for each of the schools to know which numbers are important. As I've said to some people this week, we're really in the middle of what we call a black swan event. And a black swan event is essentially something that can't be predicted. It's a once in a lifetime kind of event. And so it's really hard moving forward to know what this black swan means because we've never done it before. So none of us really can figure out what's going to happen. You are starting to think about operations, you're starting to think about signing in children, you're talking to parents about re-enrolling, but are you looking at the financial impact of those changes? If your school is only going to have 50% of the students that it had last February, what does that mean to your business? What does that mean to your ability to pay your bills? What does that mean to your ability to pay payroll every month? So it's important to have those numbers defined at least as close as you can to what the guess would be, so that as things change, you can work through it. And if you have models that you can do that with, when your state government or the federal government makes a change in October, November, because the coronavirus has spiked in your zip code, can you sit down with a model and make an adjustment to that model to see what the impact of being closed for 30 days is going to be? You know you're going to open again in November, but you're going to be closed in October. So some of the tools that I've been providing to the schools that I've talked to would let you do this on at the drop of a hat. So I think that's important for the schools to do. Also having another set of eyes. If you're a not-for-profit, I'm sure you have a not-for-profit board. There's probably a financial person on that board, so you can share those numbers with that. If you're an S corporation or an LLC in a for-profit school, you may or may not have a board of advisors, but it would be really good if you knew someone who understands the business and understands numbers, if they could come in once or twice a month and look at what you're doing to give you a second set of eyes to do that. Get down. Why is it not? There you go. So numbers that you need to know. Fixed and variable costs of running your school. What does that mean? Costs that are fixed are things like rent, utilities, taxes that you have to pay, liability insurance, for example. In a downtime, you may not want to pay the liability insurance premium, but you may need to pay it because if you don't, they won't reinsure you. Workers' compensation insurance policy.
Michael and Donna, we lost you again.
I
Hello.
can't hear him either.
The trials of our new times. Sorry, everyone. Donna, you know what I think we might be able to do is I can give you a phone number to call into, and that might be a little bit more stable. Oh, I think we lost her.
Shared screen is gone. I think we lost him too.
Give her a shout. While I am tracking Donna and Michael down, I included the sheet that has all the equipment in chat. And so if there's anything that anybody's interested in, please add your name to the sign up list on tab 2. And if y'all don't mind, I'm going to call Donna real quick. I'll be right back. Is there somebody that has already opened who, I know we had a few volunteers that we didn't get to. Is anybody willing to help fill the space for me briefly? Preferably somebody with a school open that doesn't mind fielding questions or sharing something of what they've learned.
Cassim, this is Hillary. I don't mind. We've been open the entire time doing on-site as well as online learning. So we've been doing both.
Oh, that's great. If you don't mind, Hillary.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We opened also this Monday in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Awesome. So Hillary, let's start with you, and then Tina, you'll be next. And if you don't mind, share, I think the questions we went over last time, the first one was if you could change anything, what would you have changed? And then the second one was, what are you really glad that you did that you would share with other schools?
Sure. So I think the first thing that I wouldn't have done was panic. and just kind of listened to everybody's panic and just taken one step at a time. Because when I brought myself up and just went, okay, this is the reality, how do we go about this? You know, we as Montessorians have the skill to be creative, right? So, they're back.
This is technology.
Hello, hello, we're here and swearing.
Donna, I'm sharing something that we spoke to last week while Kasim is trying to get hold of you, I think, by a phone. Now they're on mute. So, but what we really did well was get up and running within a day, online as well as maintaining on site as well. So we were, I'm in California, we were given shelter in place on a Thursday or Friday midnight. And so we started everything on that following Monday. And the thing that the faculty did, which was incredible, the week before, because there was rumors, had planned out lessons for a 9 a.m. morning meeting and a 3 p.m. afternoon meeting, which was story time at the primary and the toddler level. The early morning meeting was a real lesson, and we chose sensorial or, you know, a certain subject for every day. And then the school age students were actually given individual Zoom meetings every day, along with 2 lessons a day, as well as I'm a well-being, I run all kinds of well-being things. And so every morning we started with our singing bowl, we started with breath work, we started with yoga poses and a peace affirmation poem. And I think that was really, really important for the parents and the teachers and the children, because everything was so stressful. So if you do anything, I think the mental health side of things, and I think this was said last time, was really, really important to keep the teachers as well in a good headspace. Kasim, I can stop because I see they're back.
Yes, ma'am. I'm so sorry to start and stop you. Thank you for being the brave soul that volunteered. Certainly, that's really helpful. And I just got off the phone with Donna. She says that she's back online, and we're going to give this another go. Donna, are you and Michael there?
We are.
Awesome.
We're trying.
It doesn't continue. If it stops working again, I think what we're going to do is videotape it and provide the video to the group as opposed to doing it live. I was explaining fixed and variable costs. The reason it's important to know your fixed and variable costs is, I'll give you as an example. If you have to add, if your students are coming back and the salaries that you're paying your teachers and assistants to support those students, it's a variable cost. If your students' revenue doesn't equal or exceed the cost of paying salaries for that classroom, then you're not contributing anything to the bottom line of your business. And you really need to think about how seriously you want to open that classroom when you're bleeding from that classroom being open. So understanding where the fixed cost is and where the variable cost is, both for your school and for your classroom, is important, so you can make management decisions about how to reopen the business. And then, what point does it make sense to close a classroom? What sense it makes sense to open one? And how much money do you have in your bank account which will allow you to spend money on supporting teachers that you don't have any revenue to pay? And that's really only can be done if you truly understand the depth of your finances. Let's see if I can get this to go down one. Where is it? This one. Hold on, my computer's not working really well either. So, do you have a budget model that works? Does it reflect the aspects of your business? Can your budget model take into account scholarships, discounts, changes in compensation? Are you familiar with using it, or is there someone in your organization or on your board that uses that model and can help you sit down or have a conversation with you about how to use that model so you can forecast the economic impact of the operational decisions that you're making? And when was the last time you reviewed that model? And then another issue that you need to face is, how much cash do you have now? You need to understand where the cash is and whether you can get it. So for example, a CD, which you may have put cash into to earn some interest, may not be accessible. The ability to withdraw cash is something that you need to sit on and talk about. You need to know when you're going to start
Michael and Donna, we lost you again.
Back again. Hello, hello.
Sort of. It's coming back intermittently. I think it might be best if we default to the video, and I can share that with the group via email.
So then, while we have Michael, we can share questions that people have.
There are 5 people who have worked with the models that I have. They're also on the call. I know Laurel, I spoke to her this morning. Custom, would you let them at least do a couple of each as to what we actually did together, because they were volunteers and victims of the work that we were doing, and most of them have something to say whether it was good or bad, and I would like them to express their point of view, if that's okay with you.
Yes, absolutely. If those folks are online, we'd love to hear from you. And somebody's asking if we can share the slides. I think, Donna, you're going to send those via PDF.
Yes.
Yep. So we'll have the slides ready as well. And then when the recording is prepared, I'll send that off to our members. And who has worked with Michael that doesn't mind speaking?
I have. This is Laurel Kessom. So I've had a couple sessions with Michael, talking over some of the challenges of, you know, the financial forecast for next year. I gave him some of my profit and loss sheets. We have online QuickBooks, so I was able to easily download them into Excel format, and I shared it with him. And so then today he just showed me a model with Excel that basically, you know, adds up all your costs, adds up the cost of your salaries and the employment costs related to those, and looks at them against the monthly income with the tuition. So basically what I saw was in the model was a school that had a normal 12-month operation. So they had a reliable income over 12 months. But then he showed me if you expected to be closed a month because of COVID, you could say, you know, you could remove 1/12 from the figure and you can play with it. So some of the schools are limited, only able to open with half capacity. So you could zero out some of those numbers and see what that looks like. And I just had the tool this morning, so I haven't plugged my numbers in just yet. But it's very helpful, even if the work is rather grim, to, you know, take an honest look at your salaries, you know, and for me, we're a nonprofit, so easily, you know, 90% of our cost is the staff, and then some of it, you know, the rest is rent and utilities. You know, to take a look at the reality of that. And in the meantime, simultaneously, surveying my parents in terms of what's their tolerance. Are they on board for sending their children to school with masks on? And, you know, or do they not, you know, are they not comfortable with that? Do they want distance learning? Do they want just to not go to school until vaccines are available? And so I'm exploring that simultaneously.
Thank you for sharing that, Laurel. I think one of the things you pointed out that's so critically important, it's come up on multiple calls. We're worried about a resurgence. What happens if, you know, this happens again? We have to quarantine again. And I do think it's critical to have something in place that lets us see the eventualities. So, you know, if we're closed for a month or two, how to make those adjustments. And I think it's pretty cool that Michael has that available and that he shared it with us too. He did these 6 schools instantly for free, everyone. He was just wanted to help.
I had a quick question for you. Would that model that Michael shared with you, I have another version of it that allows you to enter 12 months worth of tuition collection. So your revenue comes in month by month, which would allow you to just delete a month like that and not have to adjust the whole thing. Would that be easier to see?
Oh, I think so. Yes. Yeah. If you had the ability to break it up into 12 segments without doing the math. Yes, ma'am. And I shouldn't speak. I don't run a school. So sorry. I'll let other people answer.
Well, and I've never seen this model because she built it without my help, and I don't really work at the school that much, so I'll be interested to see it myself.
I mean, it's what I've used it, but I got to the point where I went, well, every month is kind of the same, but now that's not true.
Sure. I think we'd love to see that. Are there any other schools that worked with Michael that don't mind sharing? Anybody else on the call?
My name's Stephanie Graper, and I worked with Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm in Georgia. I'm the director of a very small school. We only have one toddler class and one primary class, so generally about 30 kids. And we are part of a church, so even though our budget is completely separate, we share the same tax ID for tax purposes. And we have extremely detailed financial records thanks to the church, but we don't have any. We do have a board, but we don't really have anybody on the board right now that is very number savvy. So Michael was a huge help in dissecting these reports that I get that are helpful, and I can see what the profit and loss is, but I feel like planning for the future has always been kind of a weakness for us, and his tool that really allowed us to project up to 5 years in the future is going to be great for more of our long-term planning. And then this spreadsheet that Donna had, where we could go month by month, we have something like that, but it's huge. It's way too complicated for me to use. So that spreadsheet was great for my purposes of, just more understanding the ins and outs of the what we need day to day.
So just because most of you haven't seen it, it's a 4-page spreadsheet. The first sheet is planning your budget, entering the numbers of what you think things are going to cost. And the second sheet is your enrollment, and it's literally child by child by child. How much is each child going to pay? Because maybe one stays half day and one stays all day and one stays full day, and you may have different numbers for that. And then the third page is your totals, and it tracks from the budget page and the enrollment page and totals everything. And it can total it annually, or it can total it month by month by month, so you can see it. And you literally change one number and it changes all of the pages. The formulas work that way. And the fourth page isn't something I hear people talk about a lot.
Oh, Donna, we're losing you again. It was right at the best part too. Hello, hello. Sorry, y'all. Laura mentioned the phoning in. My Zoom, for whatever reason, doesn't have a call-in number, and it might just be my inadequacy at running this particular channel, but I've noticed that other meetings have made that available to me, and this one doesn't. I think it could be the size. And Heather's asking if we're able to get access to the template. Yes, I think Donna's intention is to share that with us, so I'll make sure that's included. And that'll be in the town hall page underneath the notes on the recording of this video. And honestly, I'll probably try to include the video that they record and send to us, because that'll be the most valuable asset that we can get a hold of.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Could I interject something here?
Please.
Hi, I'm Tracy Gagnon from Duluth Montessori in Georgia. We have an interesting tuition layout, the way that that we do everything. My grandmother started the school 50 years ago, and she was really smart in the way that she collected her tuition. She set it up in, most of our tuition is collected in advance. We do our first payment for the upcoming school year is typically on May 1st. And we have three different options for parents. They can either pay in full with a 10% discount. Our normal schedule is a quarterly payment, so they pay May, August, November, and February, and they're paid for the full school year. Or they have a monthly option where they can do a 10-month payments. We are a 10-month school. We don't have school during the summer. So they pay May 1st, and then they pay August through April. So their last tuition payment is in April. So when all of this hit us back in March, we only had one monthly payment left to collect from the families who had who were on monthly. And honestly, I only have 4 families that did not pay their tuition. And 2 of those families were already behind prior to this, and we were working with them. So we've been very successful with that. So I just thought I'd share that.
No, I really appreciate that. Actually, that's such a great catalyst. Kara just chimed in and said, I'd love to know what schools are doing for tuition models next year, including discounts on tuition for remote learning. So thank you, Tracy. Anybody else want to share? Emily?
I do something very similar, Tracy. We have in full by June 1st, 12 months that starts in April and goes through March, or 3, which is April, December, and March. And I only had 2 families that came back to me and said, whoa, wait a minute. And for the sake of the relationship individually, I handled that. Going forward with CASM and this group's help, I'm using the COVID addendum to our reservation agreement that clearly states that tuition is the cost of enrollment and not for services rendered during the school year, and that here's what we're going to do if we have to go to distance learning. And so they're clear up front that that's the case, and that no tuition in part or in full is refunded, because I am a for-profit school, and I say that and then laugh because we're no different than a nonprofit school in education. You know, nobody's making a ton of money. It's paying salaries and overhead. And I can't say to the teachers, could you give me some of your salary back? Or to my landlord, you wouldn't mind, giving me some of that lease money back, so that's what we're doing. And 98% of the time for this last year, it's worked. I'm in Massachusetts. They want us to double our space, double our staff, and cut our enrollment in half. So that's going to be interesting. And so it's even more important, I think, going forward, that I'm very transparent and clear about that.
We did that as well with the addendum. We're sending it out. It actually went out today. And I did share the letter that we sent out with our plans for next year with CASM with our yesterday or the day before. And I think it's up on last week's conversation. So
can you hear me now? Maybe.
Yes.
For a moment anyway. Tracy and Emily, I would love to be able to do what you do, but every state in the union is a little bit different. And when I came from Atlanta, where we did annual contracts, to Phoenix, where they will not tolerate annual contracts, we had to move to that month by month. So I hear you, and boy, do I wish I could say that we do that. So I think it depends where you are, what your contract looks like a little bit. It is clearly not up to me. No one here will sign an annual contract, period. And they don't care how much discount you give to pay up front. They're going to pay monthly. That's what they do. So anyway.
I just have a question? This is Erin. I'm from Quest Montessori School in Rhode Island, and we offer 3 different payment plans as well, much like Emily and Tracy. But we are a toddler through 8th grade program, and our early childhood parents have already come forward, and they said we were great paying this year, and we had only 1 family out of 100 not complete their payments for the year. But next year, our early childhood families have already said, if you guys go into distance learning, I'm not getting the product that I signed up for, and are you going to be offering some sort of discount? And so we decided not to do an addendum to our contract because we were concerned that we were going to have people who were going to pull out instead of enrolling. We have a lot of families who don't are using this as, you know, enrichment, and they're, you know, we have a lot of stay-at-home mothers, so they don't really need to be in our program. And so I'm just curious to see what other people are doing. If you have offered, created some sort of discount model for being out for a certain period of time for early childhood.
Our parents are paying half if they choose not to attend. That's what we're doing, and nobody's balked at that, because that, and what I'm telling them is that's just to hold your spot in the class. Otherwise, we still have a waiting list, and I can go to the waiting list.
Thank you, Donna.
Sorry, they're paying half to do what?
To just remain enrolled. So if they're choosing not to come back at this point because they're scared or whatever, but when we were closed, if we had closed, that would have been harder. And that's the part that's a little squirrely. If we're all forced to close versus choosing to close, that's where that gets a little weird. We were open, so to say, you know what, we're open, we're here. If you choose not to send your child, no big deal, but you still have to pay half tuition because the staff is here. But if we had chosen to close or we'd been forced to close, that probably would not apply, or certainly not for more than a month. So so that's only a little bit helpful.
Did you offer remote learning?
We did.
And so were they getting a discount if they chose remote learning?
No. They were still paying half tuition.
Just to hold their spot?
Yes. Yep. Because and it was only because we were open and there were people on the waiting list.
Do you have tuition insurance?
We don't.
And Tracy just read in and said she decided to offer a 5% discount across the board and a 25% discount for a limited time, for a limited number, to choose learning from home.
And yes, Emily, we never closed. We never did.
Donna, this is Wally here. I had a question regarding the toddler remote. Did you offer remote learning for toddlers too?
Are you talking to me? Yes.
Yes. And did the parents feel it was effective? Because I mean, we are having a hard time keeping the attention of the children for more than a few minutes every time we have Zoom sessions and all that. So what was your experience for toddlers particularly?
We only did Zooms with the toddlers twice a week, and they were half an hour long. Frequently it was the parents talking to the staff, but that was enough for them. The children would go in and out and in and out. I mean, we did a whole bunch of bring me games, that kind of thing. But we also did, which one of you on here gave me the idea. We did the take home work once a week. You pick it up on Monday and bring it back, or take it home on Thursday, bring it back on Monday. We clean it all up and get it ready to go out again. And the toddlers actually loved that.
Great. Thanks.
Hey, by the way, if anybody got the PPP loan, did you see? They voted last night to make it 60-40 instead of 75-25. Yes, for payroll. So that's awesome news. And I was reading this week that it looks like we're going to have till October to complete the paperwork. One of the things Michael pointed out was the SBA gets really overloaded when these applications and things start coming in. And when we go to complete the paperwork back to our bank, they're going to get overwhelmed by everybody filling out that paperwork. So maybe not rushing to complete it would be a good thing.
I wanted to throw in there about the toddlers. Our toddler teachers did the Zoom meetings, like Donna said, twice a week. And they would send a daily email with a suggested activity. But the night before they were going to do their Zoom meeting, they would send the parents, this is what we're going to do at the Zoom meeting tomorrow. These are the supplies, and a photo of how to set them up. And so they baked bread, they made Play-Doh, they painted flower pots that we sent home. We had a pickup where they picked up the supplies for all these things. And so that was really successful, but it is harder with the toddlers for sure.
And that's only successful if you've got a stay-at-home parent. If you've got dual working parents, that's not always a good solution.
Well, right. And are they working from home or are they away? Obviously, that's the big question. Yeah, it's a good point. Can I ask a question? Am I the only one that applied for an EIDL emergency relief grant, the $10,000?
I did too. Yep,
You did, Emily?
I did.
Did you get it?
So interestingly enough, I applied on day one, heard nothing. A week and a half or 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure what, I get this email. I thought it was a scam. I looked at it, it said, you know, fill this out. I did immediately because it was legit and haven't heard a thing since again.
That's really interesting because you know what happened to me? I got $10,000 in my account with nothing. Nothing, no warning, no paperwork, no nothing. $10,000 shows up in my account and in the little tiny numbers it says SBA.
Maybe I should go look at my statement, my most recent statement.
I was like, where did that money come from?
We got
Donna,
it too.
yeah, the same thing happened to us.
We had the same thing as well.
I'm a
It showed up in our account.
of the lead finance or lending officer of the SBA in Arizona. His name is Craig Jordan. And I've called Craig several times about all this loan stuff. And that's exactly what he said. He said, my life is crazy. I'm completely out of control. You know, just stick with us. You'll get paperwork eventually. We just don't. And he's working for the SBA. So it's going to get strange.
It is strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did get my paperwork eventually, and they were like, because we're going to give you the rest of your loan. And I went, whoa, I don't want any more money. Stop. Because then I have to pay it back. No. So yeah, it's weird. Very weird.
I'm in a situation where I'm going to need, Massachusetts is making it tough. I'm going to need everything I can get. And if it's a loan, so be it that I have to pay back.
Sure. Hey, one of the things that's in the video, in the presentation, and like, gosh, now I'm excited, so I probably will cut out again. But one of the things that's in there is where do you get cash? And one of the ideas is having parents prepay if you are not a 12-month school. And I'm gonna name another school that I'm not not supporting, but they're pretty smart sometimes in how they get money. Guidepost Montessori, and there's a link in the presentation, has a parent, I think they call them parent pioneers, and they collect thousands of dollars up front before they open a school. It seems to me, and then they offer them benefits. Some of it's a discount, but some of it's other stuff. And I'll provide you with that link so you can see what their model looks like, because if we've got to invest in equipment, maybe the parents would help us do that now when we're running short of cash. Just an idea.
Guys, I received $8,300 based on the number of students we have under our license. We're in California. The governor opened up some funding. It is to be used for cleaning supply purchases and or to be able to pay people who can come in and clean, because obviously we've spread thin by opening up smaller classrooms and that kind of stuff. And they just literally put it, we affiliate with something called Child Action here. And Child Action just deposits this money into your bank account. They don't even ask for receipts to show that you're doing this. So keep an eye out from your local agencies and things, because that's how I got to hear of this. It was first come, first serve, and I just was on it like a shot. But you know, that may come your way if in your states as well. It's done. You never know, they may open up some more money. So it's those types of things that I've just been scouring and looking at.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Hillary, for sharing. I think I saw Chong try to chime in earlier. Did you have a question?
Oh, no, I was just going to comment that we also received the $10,000 advance just deposited into our account.
Don't spend it.
Yeah, don't spend it unless you know where it's going. Though it can be used, there's specific things to use it for, and payroll is one of them. So if you run out of your PPP loan, you can use it for that. The thing that I'm concerned about, because I don't necessarily need a whole bunch more money yet, is it's supposed to be a grant, that first 10, but not necessarily if you've got the PPP loan. So we'll see. It's kind of up in the air.
I have a question. I'm from Northwood Montessori School. We also got the 10,000 like that, and we just got the PPP. And my question is, do you suggest keeping that in a separate account specifically for that?
I did personally. I don't know what anybody else thinks, because that way, when I have to fill out that, it's a 16-page form to get that forgiven, I have all that information. They can see the transaction on my bank account. I think that makes sense.
Okay, so I guess second part of that question is, so we do payroll through ADP. So if that part of the money has to be obviously used for payroll, do we, link it to our ADP so it gets debited from that account, or how do you suggest that happening?
Well, again,
for payroll?
I transfer the money into my main account right before I know it's going to be withdrawn, because I want a bank statement that shows that exact number being transferred and being withdrawn for payroll. So I wanted that paper trail, and it probably would get confusing with ADP because it's only going to last for 2 months.
Right. Okay, so you just transfer that amount. Okay, I get it. Perfect.
But
Thank you, Donna.
excuse me, ADP has been keeping a log and they're separating everything out.
Yeah.
They are.
ADP, and I use Paychex, and Paychex specifically is providing clients with like tracking. So
that's awesome.
Another thing too, if you got the EIDL payment, that comes off the top of your PPP forgiveness. So if you got $100,000 for PPP, and then you also got 10,000 for the EIDL, when you go to apply for your forgiveness for the PPP, all the EIDL funds come right off the top. So it's money in, money out. It doesn't buy you anything, in other words.
Yeah, so Laurel, that's exactly what I'm worried about. That's why I'm not touching that 10 unless I really need it, because I've already asked them. They deposited it with no paperwork. I'm like, how do I return it if I decide I don't want it and I'm using the PPP funds? How do I get rid of that 10 so it doesn't come off that?
It comes off right off your forgiveness. It's right in the forgiveness application.
Then I'll pay it back.
Does anybody have any ideas or requests for topics as far as next week is concerned, or any thought leaders that you'd like me to go track down and bring on board?
Kasim, I don't know if this is too hard among different states, but I know in Massachusetts, at least at this moment in time, early education and care got federal funds for early childhood, but they're only giving it to programs that are in the subsidy programs. So all the private pay programs, like myself and most of our schools, get no funds from the state for help, even towards cleaning supplies and PPE. So I don't know if it would be too hard to talk about possible grants that are available, or if that's too state specific.
I know a gentleman out of DC. He actually did a call for us already a year or two ago, but he's a grant writer, and he's written for some of the largest nonprofits in existence. I will chat him up and see if he knows somebody that knows about this topic in particular. That's a great recommendation, Laurel. Thank you. And then Kara had the recommendation. I'd love to talk about tuition models for next year. Anybody else interested in chatting about tuition models?
That would be great, yes.
Okay. Tuition models, grants, anything else to throw into the ring?
This is Wally here. I had one question. If anybody's interested in talking about the whole use of electrostatic sprayers, who is using it? Are they finding it effective? Is there any issue with toxicity and things like that? if anybody is willing to share that, or what thermometers are working well, just that kind of stuff that I think many schools are struggling with.
That's helpful. Yeah, anybody who's actually implemented some of these. Well, you mentioned something about clean water too. I completely forgot to bring it up. Forgive me. Do you want to mention that now?
Yeah, just, I mean, I've been looking into this. I'm not sure how many schools are in this position, but the schools that have been closed for a month or two or longer time period, and they're opening it. So the water safety in the is a big issue, because you don't go in, the school start and all of a sudden start using the tap water, because there's a lot of issues with, for example, Legionnaires' disease and things like that. That could be a reason that might be lingering on there in case the water is not flushed properly. So if anybody's in that position, I would suggest looking into this in terms of having a flushing plan for their buildings to make sure the water is healthy and clean before you start your school, and then make sure you do it at least enough in advance, about a month in advance. So just wanted to throw that off. But those schools who have been closed and open and all that, I mean, on a regular basis, that's not much of an issue. I mean, in our case, we closed in March and we won't open till August. That's a long period of time. And if anybody's interested, I can post it also, some link about this presentation. And I've been dealing with some institutes that deal specifically with this kind of problems. And I've been communicating with them. So I can send you some links if you want to go and explore this further, if it's of interest.
Yes, if you share those links with me, Wally, I'll make sure to include them in the resources.
Okay.
Hey, Kasim, this is Brent.
Hey, Brent.
With respect to electrostatic sprayers and all that, it really is. I mean, obviously, I put out some of the things I could on that one FAQ. It's almost like we need to pull in some experts, maybe from eMist or the some of the big ones or something, because even with the ones you're talking about today, who do they? It's such a range of different capabilities and things like that. I'm not sure how to, really say which ones are the best. I'm getting a lot of questions too about which solutions to use, whether you use a chloride based or, I mean, and if you look at them, there's all kinds. There's the UV, there's the hydrogen peroxide, there's, alcohol, and so they all have, various pluses and minuses. I'm getting some things, particularly from people wanting a very, green solution to what can you spray from an electrostatic sprayer. It's a really, good green solution. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the data and kind of seeing the same thing everybody else is, but I don't know if there's an expert that we could try to bring in just, and again, I don't necessarily want to bring in one company, because, we'll get that particular, view, but I'm just not sure we need that, but I'm not sure how to do it.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a little concerned about spraying these toxic chemicals all over the classroom and the parents' response without real clear CDC guidance for schools about it. I just don't see anything about this in anything the CDC is recommending. So we're just not jumping on it.
Well, there's the main list is that it's an EPA list. It's like 270 different solutions that are all approved for COVID-19. And they, there are a number of different types that work different ways, and so of course in some cases you're looking what works best for, for infants, and then, what's hard contact solutions and all. So it is but certain, I mean, there are schools that are using them. There are, different institutions. I just don't know how you for sure get the, what the best overall total solution is. It's still pretty wide open.
I think this is Wally here, Brent. I think we have exactly the concerns you are bringing up. And before the schools go out and spend thousands of dollars buying this and all, and finding out this is the wrong kind of solution, or it's not doesn't work, or it is toxic. I mean, nobody seems to have this data or information, and I'm not sure how to go about getting it, because you can go to these websites and all that, and you get all lost and confused.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding this. I've been talking to a couple of janitorial services. I think somebody a while ago had recommended like consulting because maybe electrostatic needs to be used through a third party. But everything that they're telling me is that it's not something you would use on a daily basis. It takes a lot longer to spray a room. And it's something that you would use when they use them in hospitals, but it's when you're at that, major disinfecting point, not just the sanitation part or the sanitation part. And so they're saying it's something that maybe you would use before you start up, or something that maybe you would use quarterly, or if you have a COVID outbreak. But it's not something that they recommend on a daily use. So that's where I'm confused. I know a lot of schools are buying them and going to use them daily, but I don't know if that makes sense. If we're doing all these other things to keep the room clean and disinfected.
Well, and I think also the data shows that most of the infections aren't coming from touching surfaces. They're coming from, airborne transmission. So I'm not telling people what to do, but like we're focusing on other things, like trying to figure out like how much to discount our tuition for our toddlers next year. That's super important to us at this point.
Just one thing I'll say is that, airplanes are using them, like cleaning in between flights and things like that. So there's some pretty fast turnaround on the electrostatic type of devices. And they are all different. Some are to the point about capacity, it would take you forever to use a certain, handheld type one. And then there's others that are bigger and we'll do an entire, school in every evening. And then you come back down to, disinfect it every night. So it's I don't know. I'm trying to think how you could get a, what kind of recommendation could be put together that would really take in effect all the different types of things that can happen or needed.
I wonder if a consultant we can find Qasim, who can share. That would be a hard one person to get hold of. In case if we can do that, who can basically provide all these issues and give us some thoughts. But that'd be ideal.
Yes, sir. I'm thinking about a hazardous materials expert, maybe. I'm gonna go hit LinkedIn and see if there's not somebody who wouldn't mind spending a half hour with us.
That'd be great.
Heather, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just know when we were starting to look at it, we opted away from the electrostatic because it was so expensive, number one. And then when I talked to one of the distributors, he was explaining that, you have to have like a positive charged chemical, like I'm not the chemical person, but like the electrostatics, you can't use any type of bleach or hydrogen product, which we prefer to use because it's a little more natural. And so he was like, yeah, he said you couldn't use that. So in the electrostatic, that I guess the solution has to be positive. So that way, when it comes out through the electronic tip, it gives it the negative charge, and it does show that it wraps it. But even on the plane, the plane commercials that you're seeing, the chemical that's coming out of there has to then be wiped down. So even if you're going to spend the $2,000 or the $4,000 on one of these electrostatics, I think it's positive because it really does, the things wrap. But they also said something about that the negative charge only holds for a certain period of time, where like using an antimicrobial solution, it's something that will hold together until it's actually touched or wiped. So the vital oxide is one that I did suggest that came from our cleaner. That is still a hydrogen-based, eco-friendly solution that we're only going to use through a sprayer on like a big surface. Like if we need to spray the hallway, spraying the playground equipment once a week. But I think between we're going forward with getting those the ultraviolet systems in the AC filters. The consultant said if you put those in your room and your air is coming out purified, and it actually will sanitize flat surfaces, and you're doing daily cleaning, you're awesome. You don't even need to look at an electrostatic because you still have to wipe down everything. It's just kind of getting around the table. So that was what I was told by 2 people.
I think that's where we've got to try to figure out just what, from an expert, because everything I read, it depends on what you use in the electrostatic. There are some that do have to be wiped down if you use that type of cleaner in an electrostatic system, but there's like chloride, and I'm looking at a ton of different ones that are chloride based, which are probably your safest ones. that can be used in electrostatic. So I guess I'm confused with the various, local people are coming up with different, solutions. Then we need probably a higher level.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I'm going to track down an expert and see if we can't get somebody to talk to us about this topic. It looks like the clear winner from the results of the vote was tuition models for next year. I'm also thinking about maybe going and trying to find someone who is an expert there. I imagine there are folks that help with, school startups and defining what that looks like. And so if you have a thought leader in the realm of tuition, please send them my way, because I'd like to have somebody speak with us. And then Don and Michael will do a video presentation and send that to us, and we'll share the video presentation and worksheet. I'm going to go track down my friend Mark and talk to him about grants. At some point, we're going to get Matt on here, and we're going to have him give us a status update on Bergamo. And other than that, are these calls still valuable? Is everybody still hanging tight, having fun?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you all next Thursday. I appreciate everybody coming. And Don and Michael, I'm so sorry that the tech issue kerfuffle. But we're excited to hear the recording.
Thanks for bearing with us.
Well, thanks for volunteering, and thank Michael for us again. I mean, to do this with 6 schools, that's a tedious process, I know, and the fact that he's offering us his expertise, it really means a lot.
Well, and we're offering the model to anyone that wants it.
Yeah, y'all are amazing, amazing. What an awesome community. Cool. I'm excited to see everybody next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.